Alan the Alien is the coolest character in the whole Invincible universe since his first introduction in the 5th issue of Invincible Comics. And in the animated series that came out in 2021, he was voiced by Seth Rogen, who honestly fit the character so well. In the animated series, we do not get to know much about this friendly alien. Still, in the comic series, his contribution to the arc for both Nolan and Mark Grayson is immense. So let's explore the character of Alan the Alien in this video and see if the representation he got in the animated series measures up to the comic book counterpart of his. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Hey, you're early!
Experimental origin of Alan. In the Invincible animated series, when Mark opens up to Alan about his issues with his father, he mentions in passing that he does not know his father either, but he does not go into much detail. We do, however, get the details of Alan's origins in the comic books, and I have to say, it is not as nice as we thought it was. Once upon a time, there was a race of aliens called Unopians. This race, sadly, was one of the victims of the Viltrum planetary expansion, resulting in Viltrumites attacking the planet. They fought with the Unopians and almost wiped them out, but the Unopians were not a race that was easy to wipe. You see, the Unopians were quite resourceful, and right before the Viltrumites could wipe them out as a whole, the Unopians boarded the ships they had and took their leave. Now, as the numbers of Unopians were dwindling, they had no other options but to form the breeding grounds at whichever outposts they had. This led to the significant increase in their numbers, sure, but the Unopian society as they knew it no longer existed. There was no family structure, and the society that was there was definitely far more scientific and less organic as compared to the original Unopian society on the planet. Now, not a lot of people have been able to face the Viltrumites and lived to tell the tale, so when the Coalition of Planets heard about the Unopians escaping the way that they did, they wanted the Unopians to join their rank. This ensured safety to a certain degree for the Unopians and also increased the number of members of the Coalition of the Planets, so it was a very win-win situation. Once the Unopians had secured the rank, they decided to suggest a plan. They suggested that they breed a new generation of Unopians who would be strong enough to withstand the Viltrumites in the future. This plan was something the Coalition of Planets were willing to give the green signal to because the Viltrum expansion threatened the whole planetary system. So with the go of the Coalition of Planets, the Unopians started experimenting on unborn Unopian fetuses. They started experimenting with them, but none of the fetuses came out right. Either they came out with disfigurements, or they came out with mental retardation, or both. Something just was not working out until, well, Alan. Alan was the first of the genetically engineered Unopians who came out perfectly fine. He was trained to be the best fighter in the whole of the universe since the day he was born, because he was expected to go up against the Viltrumites and win. Much to the delight of the Unopians and the Coalition of Planets, the plan seemed to work. Whoever Alan was up against, Alan thrived. Alan fought them, and Alan came out undefeated. Thinking that he was ready for his true mission, he was sent to fight against the Viltrumites. Sadly, Alan was not strong enough to face off against the Viltrumites. The one mission he had against them resulted in him getting beaten up very badly, which made the Coalition of Planets decide to shut down the whole program of genetically engineered Unopians, leaving Alan the only one of his kind. However, this did not mean that Alan lost all purpose in life. The goal that the Coalition of Planets had was to make sure that they had an army against the Viltrums. The best way to go about it would be by getting allies, strong allies. Now, how would they know which ally was strong and which one was not? That is when they came up with a brilliant plan. They decided to send Alan to the far ends of the cosmos, disguising him as the Champion Evaluation Officer. The whole ruse of Alan having to go up against the Champion of the planet simply had one goal. If the Champion of the planet is strong enough to beat Alan, they would probably be strong enough to beat the Viltrumites. And that is how we end up with the friendly alien who dropped by Earth in search of a champion. Alan's encounter with Invincible. When it comes to the first ever encounter between Invincible and the friendly alien, surprisingly, it is not as bad as it seems. Nolan is out on a mission with the Guardians of the Globe, and he really cannot attend to the incoming threat that is coming towards Earth, with the estimated time of arrival being 12 minutes. If you know what the mission with the Guardians is, then you know why Nolan did not bother giving Mark any details about it. Given that this was the first time Nolan told Mark that he needed his help, Mark was excited about the job. Nolan told Mark what he had to expect. The person he was going to face was going to be the strongest opponent Mark faced to date, and it is not a big fight. Mark just has to fight with the guy for a while and then be done with him. It seems pretty simple, doesn't it? When Mark shows up in space, he is not expecting the pink Cyclops-like alien who is strong enough to balance Mark. As they fought, Mark kept hearing his voice in his head because, as luck would have it, the alien he was facing had telepathy. Being a talker, the alien complimented Mark whenever he landed a nice jab and pointed out Mark's mistakes to him, such as how Mark should bump him against the man, who happened to be in the opposite direction from where they were. Finally, when Mark mustered up enough strength after catching his breath in Earth's atmosphere, he knocked the alien onto the moon's surface, and with the telepathic communication they had, the mystery surrounding the alien was unraveled. Turns out this is Alan the Alien, who is from the Coalition of Planets, and he is visiting the planet to fight against the champion who is listed for the planet to see if they are up to the Coalition standard. When Mark pressed on, as he understood none of that, Alan explained that the champions are supposed to protect the planet from other minor orbital and cosmic threats, which Mark found bizarre, as more people on Earth are not aware of higher forms of life outside Earth, so it would be weird that Earth had signed up with the Coalition of Planets to protect itself against other alien invaders. Hearing this, Alan shows his little monitor thing to prove Mark wrong, only to realize that he was assigned to Yorath, and he had been showing up on the wrong planet. From their conversations, we learn that Alan has been showing up every 3 years for the past 15 years, thinking Earth is Yorath, and they have signed up for an evaluation. He had gone up against Omni-Man for the past 15 years, not knowing that Omni-Man was a Viltrumite himself. Realizing his mess up, Alan left in a hurry, thanking Mark for his help. When he reached his home planet Telescria, however, what he heard in Telescria made him return back to Earth. While on his way back to Earth, we see Alan help a starship from getting incinerated. It's clear that this alien has a heart of gold. When he enters Earth's orbit, he is welcomed with a punch from Invincible, who assumes it is a threat, that is, his father returning back into the orbit. Seeing that it was Alan, Invincible was able to breathe easy. Turns out, at the home planet of the Coalition of Planets, Alan learned that there's a Viltrumite living on Earth, and Earth is marked for a Viltrum takeover. Not wanting his new friend's life to be in danger, Alan rushed back to Earth to inform him. This did not surprise Mark in the slightest because he knew. Taking a seat on the surface of the moon, Mark bears his heart out to Alan and tells him about how things have been. Alan listens to his friend without judgment, and finally, after speaking with Alan, Mark comes to the wise decision that the first thing he is going to do about everything would be finishing high school, which is not a bad step considering he is only a teenager. But that also gave Alan a lot of new information to work with because Earth has a Viltrumite, Mark, who has no loyalty to Viltrum, and there is another, Nolan, who has left his designated post. These two things are unheard of, and Alan is sure that the Coalition of Planets would be very interesting in this news. Attack on Alan on his home planet. After Alan spoke with Invincible for the second time, he was happy to go back home. He told the council about Invincible and Omni-Man and how Invincible was sympathetic to their cause. This was definitely something that the council was happy to hear, and in order to share the good news, Alan decided to go over to his girlfriend's place. His girlfriend, Talia, is not of the same species as he, and she is quite the bombshell to look at. Now, Alan is not supposed to have interspecies relationships, but in his happy mood, why would he stop himself? Once he had his moment with Talia, they both went out to get some food, and Alan got his favorite food. There were celebration vibes in the air, and things were looking pretty good. But things soon took a turn for the worse when the Viltrumites showed up. The Viltrumites expected Alan to tell them what he told the council. Alan was not willing to tell them anything because why would he? That led to the Viltrumites going for the age-old technique of getting someone to talk, also known as whooping their butt. By the time they were done with Alan, Alan was in really bad shape. The Viltrumites had completely ripped him apart and left him floating about in space. He was luckily found in time and put in a status pod. After months of coma, when Alan finally woke up, he was a changed man, with bulging muscles and a greater height. There were some clear changes in Alan's physique. That is when Alan was told by Thaddeus, the head of the Coalition of Planets, that now Alan is as strong as a Viltrumite, if not more. And when Alan expresses his surprise, we got a plot twist. It turns out that Thaddeus is a Viltrumite himself, but he is a rebel and he does not want to help with the Viltrum expansion. He was the one who came up with the Coalition of Planets to stand up against the Viltrumites. So even though Alan got beat up, he still ended up with gains. So there was a profit overall, which we can't deny. reason behind Alan's regret. When Thaddeus passed away, Alan became the leader of the Coalition of Planets. That is when he found the last thing Thaddeus had left for him. Turns out, Thaddeus had worked on making a deadlier version of the Scourge virus that was eradicating the Viltrumites, and Thaddeus wanted Alan to think of the greater good and release the virus on Earth, even if that meant his friends dying. Understandably, he did not want to do that because Alan and Invincible have been through thick and thin together. One could even call them bros. As the bro code dictates, you can't just actively go out and hurt your bro for the greater good. So Alan was really struggling with the whole decision of whether or not he should release the virus. Alan learns from Nolan that the Viltrumites who had survived their planet being destroyed had taken refuge on planet Earth, and Nolan insists that the Viltrumites would have a change of heart as he did after living on Earth, but Alan was not ready to take the chances on Viltrumites. After speaking with Talia, Alan decides to make the call and decides to be the one to release the virus into the atmosphere of Earth. This led to a fight between Alan and Nolan, which ended with Nolan being beaten and bloody. When Invincible joined the fight, he too was heartbroken to hear Alan's decision and had to go up against his friend. At the same time, when they were fighting over this, Oliver, Mark's half-brother, decided to support Alan's cause and wanted to release the virus into the atmosphere. Alan and Thrag, the Viltrumite, have a conversation, and they decide to stand down, but Oliver decides to go his own way. He steals the virus gun and races to empty it in the Earth's atmosphere. Invincible chased after him, and when they caught up, they ended up in a tussle. In the midst of the fight, the whole virus vial was emptied on Mark's face, making him extremely sick. As Mark is only half Viltrumite, he was able to come out of the disease eventually, but this made Alan extremely regretful because he could not believe he was the one who put his friend in this terrible situation.
Where else do you keep your brain?
Appearance in the animated show. Is it different from the original comic? In the comics, the first thing you notice about Alan is that he is a very chill dude. So when it came to the animated series, fans were eagerly waiting to see who would be portraying Alan on screen. And there could not have been a better choice than Seth Rogen. Seth has the voice of an ultimate chilled-out, laid-back dude, and with the quippy remarks that Alan passes between each jab during his fight with Invincible, Seth embodies the character as a whole. We get to see him in 2 episodes in the whole series, once in the second episode and once in the last episode. In the second episode, Alan and Invincible meet for the first time, and Invincible points out the whole Urath and Earth fiasco. In the last episode, it is, of course, Alan showing up after Mark and Nolan have fought tooth and nail to inform Mark about the Viltrumite living on Earth. There was not a moment of, oh, the comic was better when it came to this animated series because the adaptation was done so well. Overall, Alan's animated portrayal was very similar to his character in the comics. So, all the Alan fans are bound to be satisfied with the animated series.
Hey, you're early!
A closer look at the powers of Alan. Now that we have covered every key aspect of Alan's backstory, let us take a look at the powers of this friendly alien. Do you know the whole saying that you can never be truly peaceful unless you are capable of great harm? This rings very true for Alan right here. Alan was made in a lab, and that gave him a physiology that nobody else is shown to have in the whole Invincible universe. Every single time Alan faces death or near-death situations, his body mass increases, and there were adaptations in him that were not there before. The first time he almost ends up being punched to death, he comes back with a huge muscle mass. The second time he got nearly killed, thanks to Elias' bomb, he came back with even more muscle mass and scales to protect his body from that type of damage. It's marvelous how his body works. He definitely has superhuman strength, and all the other superhuman traits like speed, agility, durability, and endurance go with it without saying. He definitely has regenerative abilities, because we literally see him form himself back together again in a status pod from a torso. His telepathic ability makes it really easy for him to speak with aliens from any race, which truly helps him in his job, whether it is as a champion evaluation officer or as the head of the Coalition of Planets.
Invincible!
Marvelous verdict. Alan the Alien is the most chill dude in the whole Invincible universe, and his character arc is very heart-touching. He is a non-judgmental character, and honestly, he is the best friend we could all use in our lives. His friendship with Mark and Nolan brought about changes in their characters, which is a big plus. Overall, I can't wait for Season 2 of Invincible to see more Alan the Alien action. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.